Well, good morning, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How you all doing today? Well, we're coming to you live again from the Midwest. We're right here visiting my family in Ohio. And today we're actually going to take off from Ohio and we're going to make a couple of videos in Kentucky. I'm going to go over pick up my great friend Tim, and he's going to head off to Lexington with us today. Days with Jordan the Lion begins now. And what are we doing today? Well, we are going to do a vlog on the great Jim Varney. Ernest P. Worrell. Know what I mean? And today's Patreon sunglass vlog is for Kaz Yates. Kaz, I hope you enjoy learning a little bit about Jim Varney if you didn't know about him before now. He's a lot more than Ernest, but boy was Ernest something else. The journey has begun. It's about a 2.5 hour drive for us.
Well, hi everybody.
And this is my buddy Tim, who I have known since I was in high school. I had a job at a guitar shop, and Tim was one of the teachers there and one of the bad influences there that I, of course, befriended and has been a long-time friend ever since. Some people come and go. Tim and I always hang out every single time I'm in town. And Tim, you're the guy that got me back into playing guitar. You reminded me how much fun it was, and now you sold me a Gretsch last time I was here. You sucker.
Hey, he got a great deal.
We are headed off to Lexington to do a couple of vlogs, I told him, but today we're doing our vlog on Ernest P. Worrell, Jim Varney.
You know what I mean, Burr?
Hey! There's Jesus! That's used to be known as Touchdown Jesus. All right, we're heading into Cincinnati, downtown Cincinnati right now. So once we go through this bridge, on the other side will be Kentucky.
Welcome to Kentucky.
We're passing through Florence, y'all. So Jim Varney was actually born in Lexington, Kentucky. That's why we're going there. He was born and he was buried there, though a lot of his life he was all over the place. He would eventually make his way to New York City, and then he'd be out in Los Angeles for a while, and then he would come back and live in Nashville. His life would all change once he came back to Nashville, but he actually came back to Nashville to take a day job and got a great opportunity while he was there doing the day job. So what I want to do is I want to head into Lexington, and I want to go and start where he went to high school. And here you can see a little mosaic on the ground of the state of Kentucky in red, and then you can see the racehorses. They're known for their Kentucky racehorses. All right, we have made it. Here we are at Lafayette High School, and I figured this is probably the best place to start since I wasn't able to find Jim Varney's childhood home address. You see, when Jim was a kid, his mom realized that he had an ability to mimic the cartoon characters that he saw on TV and some of the characters and people that he saw on TV, so she didn't waste any time by getting him involved in local theater, and he was doing local theater. And then when he came to high school, here at Lafayette High School, he really took a serious interest in drama and ended up winning a few drama and theater competitions, which led him to bigger aspirations when he got out of school. So even at an early age, Jim Varney had showed that he had the ability to memorize long poems and various things. So when he got into theater, like I mentioned, he was actually winning theater titles. And so at the age of 15, he had played Ebenezer Scrooge, and by the age of 17, he was already getting let to go in and perform comedy in nightclubs, and it took him off to Virginia where he studied theater and was actually a trained Shakespearean actor. If you go look up Jim Varney on YouTube, you can see him doing some Hamlet. It's pretty great. He's actually, I mean, you would think with him having the rubber face and everything that he would have been just strictly a comedic actor, but that wasn't the case. He was actually an actor who was known for being very dramatic as well. And so when he started making all the Ernest movies, he would take advantage of that and play different characters, sometimes old men, sometimes moonshiners, sometimes old women. But he would, once he got out of theater, he would actually go to performed at Opryland its first year, and that's where he kind of learned all that, was doing those old kind of moonshiner characters. Jim Varney graduated here the class of 1968. So let's head over to Lexington Cemetery and visit Jim Varney's grave, and I'll tell you how Jim rose to fame and also sadly how he passed. Oh cool, look at that the square up there sign. I love that kind of stuff. Lexington Cemetery. Oh, look at this place. This is really nice. Well, we've made our way over to section C1, where Jim is at rest with his parents. My friend Tim has found it down here. It's kind of easy to find in a way once you get to this section if you look for the one black headstone. As you can see here, most all of them are older. His is the one that kind of stands out right here. And I mentioned he's over here by his parents. They're actually right here. James A. Varney and Louise Varney. Married in 1938. And their son, the great Jim Varney. James Albert Varney, Jr. Now you notice right away that some people have left not only Ernest Goes to Camp, but they've left guitar picks. Yeah, musician. Pretty good one too, pretty good singer. So Jim's story is that he did a lot of those outdoor theater type shows, like I mentioned, the Opryland shows, and moved around doing various ones at different places in Kentucky, and also moved over to Tennessee and was doing things in Nashville, was booking some commercials, and that was when he originally worked with John Cherry III for the first time, doing these kind of crazy moonshiner type characters in one of his commercials. Jim moved eventually out to New York City, and then he moved to Los Angeles, and he was trying to hone his craft as a stand-up comedian, trying to get his foot in the door. And I actually knew people that would hear stories about Jim Varney at the Comedy Store, and they used to say there was a door guy at the Comedy Store named Harris Pete that worked the door for over 20 years, and he once told my friend David Taylor, "You're the worst comedian I've ever seen in my life." And David said, "Well, who was the best you ever saw?" And he said, "Jim Varney." Jim used to get up and he would basically do storytelling, and he would tell stories as though they came out of his hometown, and he would do all the characters from his town. So he would do all those voices and imitations of people, and eventually he ended up getting on the Johnny Cash show, and he was on Fernwood Tonight, and he just wasn't making enough in the business to really stay afloat out there. He wasn't getting enough constant work, so as I understand it, he ended up moving his family to Nashville, and he ended up getting a regular job. And John Cherry III, who had once cast him in a commercial, was trying to find someone to play this Ernest character that he was writing something for advertisements. And he thought of Jim immediately, knew Jim could bring this guy to life. And so what started all this was that they made a commercial for this struggling amusement park. And the amusement park was in pretty bad shape, but they were trying to get people to come there so that they could raise the money to do the improvements. So they wanted to make a commercial talking about and promoting the theme park without actually showing it. So they had Ernest doing this commercial, hyping it up to his best friend Vern, who was always the camera that was filming him. They would always film Ernest through a fisheye lens, and he would always be talking somewhat down to his friend Vern, because that was the charm of Ernest, was he was the guy that everybody knew that was like the know-it-all, but did everything wrong and was real obnoxious about it. So they made that first commercial, and a dairy farm decided that they liked that character, and they asked if they could get Ernest to promote their ice cream. And next thing you know, John Cherry and Ernest, well, Jim Varney, were creating Ernest commercials constantly. At one time I found an interview with Jim Varney where he said at that point he had made over 800 Ernest commercials. So Ernest was kind of like a viral star. They ended up making personal appearances locally because he was making all of these, oddly enough, making all these commercials all at one house that I'm gonna vlog in the future in Nashville. And he became a local celebrity. So Ernest started making public appearances, and one of the appearances that kind of changed his life was that he went to the Indy 500, and they had Mickey Mouse appearing at the Indy 500 that same year, and Ernest got a bigger reaction and response when he came out than Mickey Mouse did. So Michael Eisner, the head of Disney at the time, was in the audience and noticed, and within the year he had signed on for a movie to be made. So that was Ernest Goes to Camp. And they had John Cherry also do the movie because you had to capture the charm of Ernest. And so they filmed the movie pretty much with the same perspective and the same character and the same charm that they would do all the commercials with. The difference being now in the commercials where he never really interacted with anyone other than Vern, now he would interact with other people and be put in dramatic situations. And the movie was a success. So they ended up making 2 more movies for Disney, and then he ended up making like a total of 9 movies in 10 or 11 years. I mean, just Ernest movies. That's how big Ernest became. Now, one of my favorite things is that Jim Varney was also given a TV show. It was called Hey Vern, It's Ernest. And this came out in 1990, and they only did 1 season. It was 13 episodes. But when I was in 6th grade, I guess this would have been 93 or 94, they started replaying that on country music television on Saturday mornings, and I had a paper route. And on Saturdays and Sundays, the papers, you had to have them delivered by 8 a.m. So my grandpa was cool enough to always come pick me up and take me around to do my papers at 6 a.m. on Saturday and Sundays. And we always had this thing where as soon as we got done, it was always finished up right around 7. He would always take me over to Hardee's, get me a breakfast sandwich, and take me home, and I would sit and eat that breakfast sandwich, and I would watch Hey Vern, It's Ernest. So that has like a really special place in my heart, and I think that's one of the best showcases for him doing all those different characters, him playing like this egotistical socialite type Ernest, him playing an old woman, him playing older men, him playing moonshiners, him playing just all the various characters he would do. He would really get to showcase a lot of it on there, and some of the actors that he had, like Billy Burge, who was in Ernest Goes to Camp, would also be in Hey Vern, It's Ernest. So not only was he Ernest, and what's cool about him being Ernest is a lot of people that would maybe be pigeonholed, like say if you were Pee Wee Herman or something, maybe you'd never be seen as anyone other than that character. He actually didn't mind it because he got to do so much as the character, and it was something that he created that he really loved it. People would see him on the street and yell, hey Ernest, kiss my baby, or hey Ernest, take a photo with me. And he would totally be Ernest. He would just jump right into character being Ernest. He had no problem with it. Like I said, he would go off and do personal appearances. He was hitting the fair circuit, the state fairs there for a while, and he and his writer would go off and do these things together, write skits for Ernest to do. He ended up becoming Jed Clampett in the movie version of the Beverly Hillbillies. He also was Slinky the dog in Toy Story movies. So Jim had a really great career, and like I mentioned, he put out a handful of different songs that he had recorded throughout his life. He was great friends with Robin Williams, so you can find, if you look on YouTube, you can find various recordings of him and Robin Williams hanging out and joking and kind of like going into different characters and just having fun together. And when you think about that and you think about the kind of comedian and the kind of person that Robin Williams was, it kind of paints a picture as to what Jim Varney must have been like to hang out with. Someone who, you know, at the snap of a finger could go right into an inside joke or go right into a character. All of his friends said he was a very, very humorous guy and a very loving guy. And unfortunately, he was a very, very heavy chain smoker his whole life. You actually probably can tell by listening to his voice. But that was what ended up killing him. He ended up getting lung cancer. When he was making his last movie in South Africa, I think it was the Ernest in the Army movie, his director John Cherry III said he noticed that his energy was different. When you watch the movie, I watched it, I didn't really notice anything, but apparently on the set, you could tell something was off, and sadly and unexpectedly, yeah, it took his life very, very young, at the age of 50 years old. People have left all kinds of coins here inside the drama faces. Guitar picks. He was in this with Iron Eyes Cody. So since Jim got his start doing the Johnny Cash show rather frequently in the early 70s, I'm gonna leave a Johnny Cash pick here for Jim. Rest in peace to the great comedian Jim Varney. Pretty amazing to think that a commercial that Jim Varney was just doing for extra money while he was working side jobs after maybe not giving up his love for comedy or his attempt at a career of it, but it's pretty cool to know that that just snowballed into going from little bitty amusement parks and Brahms ice cream to Sprite commercials, Mellow Yellow. He had national campaigns. I remember, it's great if you, something that my aunt got me as one of the birthday gifts when I was younger was something called Ernest Greatest Hits on VHS, and it was a bunch of the commercials all combined together, like 45 minutes worth. And it's great. You'll see him doing action news commercials. He's doing banking commercials where he's waking up Vern in the middle of the night telling him how I'm concerned about your money, Vern. So good. Go on YouTube, look up Ernest Greatest Hits. Both volumes are on there. Those commercials, those are just like, to me, that's what Ernest was all about. It was the talking to the camera, the pompousness, the lovability. Great, great, great Ernest P. Worrell. Sadly, at the end, Jim Varney did give up smoking and did go through chemotherapy trying to save himself, but he passed away at his house in White House, Tennessee. He was supposedly writing or working on a script at the time about the Hatfields and McCoys, in which he was talking about how his grandfather used to squirrel hunt with them. Who knows what that would have turned into. Guarantee he would have played most of the characters though, hopefully. Driving to Jim's headstone, we were noticing all kinds of amazing memorials and headstones, so we figured we'd show you a few before we took off. Look at this. It's a stack of logs. Part of their headstone. Look at that one. General John H. Morgan. And look at this one. You can see their swords down in here and here. Flag, cross. And if you look up there, it says "Our Dead." And take a look at this section. This was the pastor of the Main Street Baptist Church. There's a Percy Shelley quote on this one. Roger Roberson Jr. says, "Death is the veil which those who live call life. They sleep and it is lifted." So here's Roger Roberson Sr. And I was wondering, who is he? Or what's the significance? And on the back it actually says, take a look at what he's known for. Well, first, take a look at this great quote. It says, I will love you all my life, and when I die, I will still love you forever and beyond. At the bottom it says, American designer of typefaces and fonts, best known for the font Letter Gothic. I was just reading this, the Bowmans. On the right, this one says Stuart Bowman. He and his camera, a mirror of Kentucky life as only he could see, good or bad, happy or sad, through his eyes. From his heart, be they shared for all to see, as a record of life in this time. He and his camera did their part. I like it a lot. Take a look at this one. This one's a tree. Barack G. Thomas. That vine growing up it. This one says, simply to thy cross I cling. Look at that one. It's like a little lamb. Take a look at this one. This is Marty Matthews. That's an interesting. And this cemetery also has some of Mary Todd Lincoln's family buried in it. All of these names here are Todd. Going back in here, these are all Todds. Emily Todd. Here's some Todds. And then this big one right here in the center is also. And you can see here it says Margaret, daughter of Robert and Elizabeth Todd. Pretty much this whole section right here are all Mary Todd Lincoln's family. I actually found that there's a pretty interesting character actor buried in this place, and you may not know his name, but when I tell you what he's known for, you'll most definitely recognize him. I believe he is in this wall mausoleum next to us. So we found it right up here where this glare is. You can see a name that says Ralph W. Foodie. Now Ralph is in quite a few things, but maybe the thing that we all know him for the most is the Home Alone movies. He was the guy that said, tell you what I'm gonna give you, snakes. I'm gonna give you till the count of 10 to get you ugly, yellow, no good keister out of my property before I pump your guts full of lead. Then he does it. Keep the change, you filthy animal. God, that's such a great scene. When I saw he was buried here, I just had to include him. Alright my friends, we're gonna call it a day. I hope you enjoyed this vlog from Lexington, Kentucky. I had a great day. I love Jim Varney, and it was kind of cool to come around and just check out this cemetery in this part of the world where I actually really have never spent much time. And then to see where he was buried. Have a great night everyone. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.